Call the November 21st meeting of the Person Board of County Commissioners to order at this time. Recognize that we do have a quorum. We'll ask Commissioner Sims to lead us in an invocation, after which Commissioner P.J. Gentry will lead our Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for allowing us to be here today. We just ask that you would lead us and guide us as we go forth in our meetings today and help us to make wise decisions. We ask and pray that you be with our EMS, fire, police, sheriff's departments, and all those that are every day they go out and risk their lives to keep us safe. We pray for our military. Pray that you will be with them and be with their families, especially during this time of Thanksgiving, those who are not here and overseas. And again, being that we are celebrating Thanksgiving, let us all be thankful for the many blessings that you have blessed us with. We pray these things in your most heavenly name. Amen.
Amen. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on our agenda is discussion, adjustment, and approval of the agenda as presented. And I would request that item number 3 on the agenda be postponed to a future meeting due to the presenter not being able to be with us today. Any other discussion or adjustment to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda with the removal of item number 3.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Next on the agenda is informal comments, where we have 10 minutes set aside at each commissioner meeting for public comment. I think we have 3 speakers, and we'll have approximately 3.5 minutes for discussion by each. Please be aware, cognizant of the time, and courtesy to the speakers to follow. And let me remind you that your comments are to the entire board, not individual board members. Madam Clerk, who is our first speaker?
Mr. John Seat of Northport, Florida.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Every once in a while, there's a shining example given by God to a community, and Commissioner Gentry has been just such a shining example of a good, strong Christian leader within Person County. Her goodness and thoughtfulness is known not just throughout our county, but throughout our state. From the day she took her solemn oath of office, she conducted herself in sincere service to the community, not herself. Her selfless approach to the office of commissioner was exemplary by being transparent in her conduct on the board, asking questions and gathering information publicly, never voting for something till she understood it and could determine what was best for the citizens of Person County. She's been humble and kind, listening and responding to all who interacted with her. Compassion was the order of the day as she held firm to the standards of conduct and her Christian convictions. Commissioner Gentry's steady diligence and honest approach to the role was a breath of fresh air, showing all who are willing to see that everyday moral decisions matter and have consequences. Her confidence, her focus, her hope for a better tomorrow, and awareness displayed a quiet Christian strength seldom seen. Her behavior reflects well on her family, her heart, and her church. I'm sure God has a blessing for her for a job well done in service to this community. May she be successful in the Lord's eyes with whatever she places her hand to next. I will personally miss her presence on this board and feel that without her, the board and county will struggle more than it has already. You know I meant it when I said, "You are this county's Joan of Arc," which is the title of this speech, if you will. Many times we have observed how she has maintained her composure and proper demeanor while being scorned by others and treated contemptibly by some who took the same oath of office as she did. You never let the demeaning abuse quench the light you protected and upheld for those you served. Thank you for your service as you move to your next task in life. While some may believe that election results are the end-all, we know that it is just the beginning as a commissioner. You understand that the ends don't justify the means. As today we watch the world that does whatever's right in their own eyes. Thank you for showing that character matters and that leadership matters. You have been such a blessing to the citizens of Person County, whether each citizen realizes it or not, and I wish there were 100 people behind me throughout this county saying similar things. I'm sure that God above is looking down today and saying, good job, my good and faithful servant. God bless you always. Commissioner Gentry, it has been and is an honor to know you. Sincerely, me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Our next speaker is Sheriff Dewey Jones.
Good morning, Commissioners. I just want to give you an update, and I wanted to publicly thank our county manager and HR, Sonia, and her team. I come before this board about the problem we were having in the detention center. This is something we've been working on for months, and they actually found a way to actually help us out already. And I am pleased to say we were 15 down in the jail. We're only down 9 now, and because of the work that's been done here, we have 3 of our ones that left are in the process of coming back, and 2 more already in the works to hire. So within a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, what we've been able to turn around in the jail, we went 15 down, and hopefully within a week we'll only be 4 down. So I want to say thank you for the work that was done, and it was very much appreciated by all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
And our last speaker is Ms. Cynthia Lynch of Her Mills.
Good morning.
Good morning.
To what John said, I'll say ditto, but I'll also have to add a little bit more. What I really appreciate about Commissioner Gentry is her willingness to ask questions. I think that is so important. I've noticed on other boards that I've been involved with, meetings I've observed, that people tend not to ask questions here. I don't know if they think that's a sign of not understanding, but questions are really important. It also helps the public to understand what's going on. Sometimes I ask questions just to clarify things. I may even know the answer, but I've been on boards where I ask questions just to get something on the record. Questions are so helpful, and Commissioner Gentry has been so good at asking those questions, making sure there's clarification, making sure we understand. So I would just ask that you would all take that on and ask questions and help us to all understand what's going on here. I appreciate so much that when it came to economic development, when it came to how we can help our citizens, particularly those with DSS and those kind of issues, that she really took the time to look into it, took extra time to put together people who could help her understand what were the best ways. And I think she came up with some really good answers. Maybe not quite the time for some of those things, but please don't put those on the back burner. There is a lot of information, there was a lot of just wisdom that I think has come out of how we can approach things differently, look outside of the box. There's a lot of challenges that you're going to have in the future, so please ask those questions, look at things diligently, and work out of the box. Sometimes those are where you're going to find your best answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was our last speaker. I was approached after the sign-up for another speaker. It's up to the board if you'd like to allow any further public comments.
Yeah, we'll accept that
Ms.
this time
Anderson
around
Clayton
because
was-
we
yeah,
have
Heather.
had one item removed, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So come forward, please.
And thank you to the board for that. I really appreciate it. Anderson Clayton, just here to say that I know that y'all are going over the American Rescue Plan dollar funding opportunities later, and we wanted to voice support once again for putting money towards a splash pad here in the community. A lot of people in the community wanted to be here today for that. Unfortunately, work does not permit them to leave at 9 a.m. and come to one of these meetings, so I'm hopeful that y'all will take me as their representative today. But please make sure that y'all are thinking about that when you do take the opportunity to look over those options later. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Item number 1 on the agenda is discussion, adjustment, or approval of the consent agenda as presented. Do we have a motion for approval?
Yeah, I just have one comment. There's a lot of
Yes.
funds moving around. Is this just the end of the year balancing for a lot of this? I know, I'm the question asker, I know.
Fortunately, I didn't even grab a copy before I came down.
Oh, okay.
But I think one of the budget amendments includes a transfer from the general fund to the capital investment fund for, I think it was over 4 million, maybe. And that is to comply
42,
with
yeah.
the policy that we all have in place now to move any excess fund balance reserves over the 25% that was recognized to the CIF fund
Right, okay.
to help support debt and capital.
For debt service and capital improvements.
Yes.
That's what I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
There's like, there's a total of 88,500,000.
Well, it's actually.
It's part of it.
That's actually just the transfers that's causing that
The
to look like it doubles. It's really just 4 million.
Journal adjustments back and forth.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
sure.
that, thanks.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. Item number 2 on the new business, presentation of the annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. Ms. Weinberg again. Thank you.
Good morning. I am pleased to introduce Alan Thompson. He is our auditor from, let me see if I've got this right, Thompson, Price, Scott, and Adams. He is here to present our fiscal year 22 audit report.
Good morning,
Morning.
sir.
You should have at your placement, have a copy of the audit report, but I'm going to jump from this smaller report, and hopefully I've got most of the numbers you'd like to look at in there, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. First thing, let me, if I can, the main thing you do hire us to do is to issue an opinion on the financial statements as a whole. We issue an unmodified report, which is a quote-unquote clean report. And on page 1, I'm going to start there, and I'm going to read some highlights. I will get to the 2 or 3 findings I want to discuss, and then I'll talk about numbers. No significant audit findings. On page 2, no difficulties in performing the audit, no uncorrected misstatements, no disagreements with management. Management did provide us with a representation letter dated October 21st. We're unaware that management consulted any outside accountants, auditors, etc. Under findings or issues, 2, if you'll allow me, the patients to get to very last on financials, and then on the Medicaid, all were technical, and none had to do with determination, so there was no money involved whatsoever. On page 4, if you will, I don't attempt to say these are all the key numbers in the audit report, but they are some of the key numbers in the audit report. And the hope here is that by pulling these numbers out, putting them in a spreadsheet with the 4 prior years, you get a feel for what the trends might be, and it gives you a better context of what fund balance might be, rather than just a number sitting out there in isolation. So you can see total fund balance in general fund at $33,991,489. It's the highest of any of the 5 years. Unavailable fund balance, $9,590,000, committed and assigned at $3.2 million. General fund expenditures at $67 million, $328,831. And then fund balance available as a percentage at 36.24. Unassigned fund balance at $21,108,000, and then unassigned fund balance as a percentage at 31.35. Revenues over and under expenses before transfers. The general fund was $10,968,987, and the stormwater fund at $72,414. Total cash in the general fund, $27,707,000. Again, that's the highest of any of the 5 years there. And then other governmental, the cash is $36,865,000. And that's higher than normal because of the status of certain projects, i.e. ARPA money, unspent at the end of the year, airport project, et cetera, money sitting there at the end of the year. So it's a timing issue rather than, hey, we got all this money sitting there. So it's really, it's going to be spent. Obviously, y'all determined that. But that jump from 15 to 36, there is a reason for that, as mentioned, timing. Stormwater cash, $773,590. Again, that's the highest of any of the years presented. Then you see the general fund again and fund balance, other governmental funds at $16,151,000, and then stormwater at $745,696. You see your property tax rates there, and then collection percentages, 98.62. You can see a strong collection percentage across the board on the 5 years, total property valuation, total levy amount, and then a breakdown of your general fund revenues and expenditures by department. I'm not going to read all those numbers out for you. If you'd be kind enough to flip over to page 5, you can see a nice little trend there in the blue in terms of total fund balance, and then the committed and assigned in red. I will say this about my group weighted average on the bottom, and I apologize for it. I don't have a good, I don't make the determination, so I'm just relaying information. Traditionally, it's been a real good determination and just getting a feel for where you may stack up versus other counties in your population. The LGC/state treasurer decided that they were going to do away with that, i.e. blocks of 10 on population, and just make it everybody with a budget under 100 million and everybody with a budget over 100 million. So the value of that group weighted average comparison kind of went way down. So, but it's still there. So you can see that on the bottom, your percentage versus the group weighted average. On page 6, you can see unassigned fund balance as a percentage charted out. I will say this unassigned fund balance does have some bearing. It's one of the numbers they look at if you ever go out for debt at the LGC, the debt committee, et cetera. There was some talk, all us old farts who've been doing this for 30-some years thought it's always been 8.33 according to General Statute 159. And the LGC put a memo out and said, no, that's not true. But 8.33% basically is 1 month's expenditures. So what they actually do is determine what it should be on a per unit basis. I would say and encourage, if you get close to 8.33, you'll probably get a little call, a little visit. Somebody will be saying, why is it that close? So yours is strong. The larger unit you are in terms of total expenditures in general fund, probably the smaller that can be. And i.e., if I did a beach town audit, if they had 30%, I'd be going nuts. It's too low. But at your level, where you are is good and it's strong. On the bottom, you can see analysis of revenues over and under expenses before transfers, and you can see positive across the board for both general fund and stormwater fund. And on page 7, you can see your cash balances and fund balances in a pie chart at the top with the numbers right underneath that. And again, take the other governmental funds cash with a grain of salt because it's a timing of when the airport project or ARPA monies are spent and not necessarily, hey, we've got this big amount of money stored up to do something with. On page 8, you can see your property tax rates compared to the group weighted average and the collection percentage on the bottom compared to the group weighted average. And then on page 9, You can see your general fund revenue as a percentage, with ad valorem taxes being approximately 55%, and the large general fund expenditures being public safety, human services, education, and general government. Last year, June 30, on page 10, last year, June 30, 21, the LGC, if you ever had a finding or they wanted a response, they sent you what was called a unit letter. They no longer send unit letters. They ask us to tell you what they want you to respond to them about within 60 days from today. And what they want is 2 responses. One's a budget violation. There's a big number there. I'll come back and talk about it, and it's only $15,949, and it's the timing on when some fines and forfeitures were in there and the budget wasn't made for it. The other is a prior period adjustment where the LGC wants you to include a 3rd month after the end of the year for sales tax revenue. So really it just added to fund balance, if you will. So instead of 2, we accrued 3. That large amount you don't even have to apply for because it's an accounting standard. It's the leases, GASB 87, where any lease that the county has with someone or to someone has to be recorded on the balance sheet and on the income statement or fund balances. I'm not sure how much meaning it has, but you have to budget for it. And last year, meaning 6/30/22, there was some discussion at the LGC level that we're not even going to make you call it a finding. And then after the end of the year, they said, oh, yes, we are. So you can take all that 87 with a grain of salt, which is why they said, we don't want you to respond to it. Because if, whatever, y'all can figure all that out. The truth about...
Isn't it? Is it or isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it does, in their mind, have value. In my mind, it doesn't have a lot of value, because if you've got a 20-year lease on a building, you know you've got an annual expenditure of 20 years. What they're trying to do is accumulate the payments for those 20 years and bring it back to a present value and put that asset on the building, on the balance sheet, and that liability on the balance sheet. How much value that has, and then come over and put a revenue and expenditure on your budget to actual. So
Why?
well, if you figure that one out,
Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense.
No, ma'am, it does.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying what you really have on the findings is we added a month of sales tax, and there was $15,000 on the budget for fines and forfeitures. Other than that, again, unmodified report, which is a quote-unquote clean report. Overall financially is good shape. Saw where your fund balance highest of any of the 5 years, cash is any of the highest of any of the 5 years in general fund, and you got some project timing on some things on cash on other governmentals. I'm happy to answer any questions you got of me, and I'm also happy to answer any questions if you take it home and you can't sleep one night and you read through the whole audit report. Don't call me that night, but the next morning, give me a call, and if I happen not to be there, tell them to give you my cell number. I'll do my best to get you an answer.
Sir, could you explain a little bit more about fines and forfeitures, that 15,000?
I'm probably going to let Amy have a shot at that one.
Good. I don't know, just for clarity. I mean, I know what it is and where it goes, but
So initially, fines up till now, up till the fiscal year '22 report, fines and forfeitures, is an in and out. It is an in and out account. We collect fines and forfeitures. It comes from the courts. We then turn around and submit that amount to the Board of Education. So up till recently, we only had to report this on the balance sheet. And so all those transactions were going into that account and then back out of that account. So you didn't really have to budget for that because that's a balance sheet account. Well, this new standard requires now that these monies be recognized with a budget for revenues and a budget for the expenditure going out. Well, somewhere along the way, this standard also included a lot of other things. We we addressed all of the other things and forgot to go back and take that account and classify it as a revenue and expenditure account. Because of that, we had to, when the adjustment was made, to split that account out and recognize it as a revenue and recognize the expenditure for the audit report, that expenditure was placed in the education, in the schools department, in the education function. Well, as you know, we don't have but 2 departments in the education function. We have the schools and we have PCC. So there wasn't a lot of money in those 2 departments to support with budget the amount that we had to post there as an expenditure for the fines and forfeitures. And therefore, it caused that over budget issue in the report. And so because we're over budget in the education function, it caused the finding to be in place. So now we have, of course, addressed that for the fiscal year 23 report. We'll have budget there to cover that revenue and the expenditure. So it won't be a problem, but because it was a last-minute adjustment, we can't go back and appropriate funds to put in the budget to cover it.
Can't go back and post date.
You can't, right.
The journal
It's
adjustment.
unfortunate, it's kind of
Okay.
unfair. You can go back and make adjustments to expenditures and add, to them, but you can't do anything about the budget once the year closes. So that's
We
how that
will
happened.
thank the sheriff and the courts for the fines and forfeitures, but now you have to budget, so will that be an estimated figure, or how do you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have to estimate, that'll be part of the
Mini
adopted budget. We'll have that fines and forfeitures line in the schools department to cover that expenditure going to them.
It
What
sounds
fun.
like another
Fun.
national one-size-fits-all financial standard that really makes no sense for North Carolina.
Right.
Where our state constitution absolutely says that money just has to, when it's received, be paid out to the school board.
Exactly, yeah.
So is anybody working on killing this process? I mean, is there any lobbying people going, this is really
Well, I can tell you.
arduous, not necessary?
Yeah, I can tell you that this one is less of an issue than the lease implementation that Alan
Yeah.
was talking about. That is a problem across the board for every unit of government that we have in North Carolina. It is a cumbersome process that we are gonna have to hire or contract with a third party to just do the calculations for us necessary to do that calculation every year for the audit report.
So it's
It has
costing us more
no-
money to do
Yes,
this?
yes. It has there's no rhyme or reason to it. Nobody reading the audit report is gonna understand the significance. There really is no significance to what they're doing with that. They're taking an operating lease and classifying it as a capital lease. So it's crazy, but it is what the Government Finance Officers Association has handed down, and which is a national association, and it is what we have to comply with. So I think that is why the state has said, don't worry about sending us a letter, about that issue if you didn't comply completely with that, because it is so complicated, and most units are really struggling with that report.
I would think
So-
that the State County Commissioners Association would be on this kind of thing. It's affecting everybody.
I hope so. It's been a very, of course, it's been great for these third-party companies that want you to pay them to help do these calculations. But very few units have the capacity to be able to do those calculations, and you have to have special software to really figure that out.
Somebody's lobbying for it in Raleigh.
Sure,
And
yeah.
and other places.
Right, yeah. So anyway, it is a national thing. It's not just for
Okay.
North Carolina. This is a national
Crazy.
standard that we had to comply
And
with.
just one more quick word.
Crazy.
There's a long history of this, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. It is not a particularly transparent board. They don't really listen to comments. It is fair to say that the standards they impose are well-meaning, and often there is good reason for the requirements, but they do tend to be a one-size-fits-all that's sometimes very difficult and costly to comply with. But once they put one in place, I don't know of an instance where one has ever been
No,
completely repealed.
it's there. It's there. We will have to deal with that going forward, I'm sure.
That's a little
Thank you.
authoritarian, isn't it?
Yes,
I
it
mean,
is. I think so,
seriously,
too.
that kind of goes against the whole principle of our Constitution and how we govern. That just is really difficult.
It is, and those accounting standards, when they come down, are not always the easiest to implement, and this one was tough.
Wow.
So it is here to stay, I think, and we will just have to deal with it the best we can.
Okay, Amy, you and staff and our auditors, we appreciate your efforts for handling taxpayers' money wisely and openly and very transparent and well-explained, and appreciate your efforts there.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have one quick question for you. The weighted average here on property taxes, it looks like our property taxes are so much higher compared to the weighted average of the $100 million or less budgets. But our taxes incorporate, I think, we've got things in our taxes that are incorporating fire taxes and whatnot that aren't maybe in the weighted. Is that a fair number to look at?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I'm attempting to explain because, the one-size-fit-all comment on the 87, the group weighted average, if you don't have similar populations in it, I mean, we're going to probably sit down as partners and decide whether or not we want to include it going forward, because I think if you can't get similar-sized population counties, it tends to distort it. And
Yeah,
so-
but my point was, different counties, like they'll have a property tax and then they'll have a fire tax and everything else, and they're separated out. So this could be representative just strictly property taxes, where our tax rate includes those things. It's a lump sum. So ours is different. It makes ours look higher overall.
Yes, ma'am.
But if you were to break some of that out, it would look differently. And I think when I looked at that, I went, that doesn't look right to me. So
It's a
just getting
valid
rid of
point.
it, just getting rid of it altogether would, I don't know if it'd be helpful, but,
The only other option we would have to get you a good comparison would probably be two things, because we don't tend to audit Wake County and Mecklenburg.
right.
Is to try and get a group of 10 counties of similar sized population, and in this case, pull out specific items that would distort the comparison.
Yeah.
I.e., if XYZ County doesn't have the fire tax included, then we pull yours out to get a better comparison.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, if you all are satisfied with the report and have had your questions answered to your satisfaction, the traditional motion is to accept the report of the independent auditor for the record.
We have a motion.
Motion to accept the report of the independent auditor.
Have a motion on the floor of acceptance as presented. All in favor, well, comments, further comments or questions? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None, motion carried.
Thank you, Amy and staff. I know this is hard. I know this is hard work.
And moving along on the agenda to item number 2 would be the County Farm Park project. Great opportunities, or rather grant opportunities. Introduction of Piedmont Conservation Council Incorporated, Mr. John Hill.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
How are y'all doing this morning?
Good.
Good. I'd like to introduce you to Janelle Rogers. Janelle is our partner with Piedmont Conservation Council. And as you know, this exciting project that we're working on, we've been working on for a while, it seems like, the County Farm Park. The interim alternative implementation approach to stormwater includes the County Farm Park, or excuse me, the County Farm, which is not a park yet, and the Rock Athletic Complex. So we have some grant opportunities coming up, as we mentioned when this process first started, where we can take the actual stormwater money and match it with a Land Water Conservation Trust Fund and Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant to double down on our money. Just recently, we've been working with the Piedmont Conservation Council on some other grant opportunities. And I'm just going to let Janelle take the stage and talk about what Piedmont Conservation Council is all about.
So good morning. It's nice to be
Good
able to
morning.
meet you all. On behalf of the PCC Board, again, my name is Janelle Rogers. I'm the Executive Director there. We manage projects on behalf of the soil and district waters in 10 of our counties. Piedmont Conservation is one of them. And working with Mr. Hill, we've been able to identify the environmental enhancement grant through the state of North Carolina to help focus on the grant for the county park. And so with Piedmont Conservation Council, I work with 2 other staff that help to identify these projects, and then I write the grants for them. So on behalf of that, we are really excited to be able to partner with you in conservation efforts that we focus on with North Carolina. Yes. And we have been doing so for quite a while. So I'm not sure, John, if there's any other questions or any other
So-
statements.
And as you know, we pay a membership along with other counties and municipalities into the Piedmont Conservation Council. And of course, they provide all these great services of, administrating grants, applying for them, and also project management. One recent grant that Piedmont PCC worked on with us, if you remember, was the wildlife grant where we studied the species along the railroad corridor from Roxborough all the way to Timberlake, and that was back in 2019,
18, 19?
roughly. And what that grant did for us is by studying the ecosystem along the Flat River, it created us an environmental review that we can utilize for our other grant processes and other grant applications. In this particular effort here, so just to give you a ballpark and of course, y'all know grants are not a guarantee, but we do have a pretty good track record of acquiring grants. So the plan for the farm to become a park, is to take the remaining balance of our storm water funds that we have not spent to date and combine that with a possible environmental enhancement grant once we do receive that grant, which will be probably in the $300,000 range once everything is combined. So then what we would do is we would take, around the $400,000 mark when everything's combined. We take the $400,000, PCC will use that as the match to Land Water Conservation Trust or Parks and Recreation Trust and make double that money, make it an $800,000 project. So it's a good opportunity. We enjoyed the partnership.
Okay, so back up, so the potential grants, 400,000, and then the match from Person County's funds is 400,000 for the 800,000? Is that
Correct.
kind of what we're hoping that it comes together? Okay.
And so what we need from you today is we would like for you to motion and adopt your support for the project and the grant application that PCC is going to apply for. And then with your support, what that does for us in our grant packet, there's a certain amount of points you get if the board supports things like the grant application or the project or so on and so forth. And so we're hoping that you still support the project and the grant opportunities so that we get those points with the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund Board.
So these funds you're talking about are part of what this board had voted to do previously?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Further questions of Mr. Hill or Ms. Rogers? I don't want to leave you out either. Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize or approve of the the process application in joint venture with our county recreation board? Is that how you wanted to go forward, cooperation?
It would be a motion of your support for the project and for the application to the Parks and Recreation.
Motion in
Trust Fund.
support of the project and the motion for the application of the project. And also, I'd like to add that future naming of the park, I think, because it's historical value and importance to the community, I'd like to throw out that the naming of the park be the Burton Tilly Park. I'd like to throw that out now for potential consideration for the future naming of the park as well.
If you want to do that second part, I think that would be a separate motion.
Do you want a separate motion on that? Okay.
Yes. Okay, first motion, again, Madam Clerk.
All right, the motion is to reaffirm the partnership with the Person Conservation Council and supporting their submittal of the grant cycle applications on the county's behalf related to the Land and Water Trust Fund grant and/or the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant for this
Okay.
project, for the county farm project.
Okay, that's the motion. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. Okay, Commissioner Gentry,
Now
did you
want
want to do the
separate-
second?
I'd like to make a motion that we consider naming the potential county farm park, the Burton Tilly Park.
Mr.
Burton,
Chairman, is a motion appropriate, or is it just for future consideration? I mean, I
good
think,
point.
I value the recommendation, but I don't think a motion's needed if it's gonna be for future consideration of it.
To be considered, well, it's still a lot to be decided and determined based on our previous motion and acceptance, so we're still in the infancy part of that, so.
Right. Just want to get it on the table, get it on the record that in talking with the people who have owned the land and lived in the area, that naming it after some historical value of the family legacies of the ownership of the land and the history in the county, that many of the landowners would appreciate the recognition of a park named Burton Tilly. So I'd like to just have that on the record.
Yeah, so noted in the minutes, and no further action at
Thank
this
you.
time. All right.
Appreciate that.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Chairman's report. I don't know, as we well know, we've just had an election, and we've got two newly elected officials in our audience. Jason Thomas, who'll be on board with us beginning in December, and the new Sheriff Jason. Appreciate you both being here. Best wishes in the future, and look forward to working with both of you. As far as my reports, I've typical month with RTRP meeting, and I'll mention there that in the Research Triangle meeting, Person County has been highlighted as one of the top recognized notes through the region over the past quarter, and that's a compliment to us and our staff as being responsive to their request and the information posted on the regional website. JCPC meeting, which was, again, a monthly meeting. In-person industries had another very good day with lots of activity there with a stew and a giveaway of some Hollywood furniture, which I bought tickets to and didn't win, so I don't have to explain anything. It was a donation. And I participated in another well-organized Veterans Day activity that was held in the auditorium here, primarily because of weather. Compliment our veterans again and that staff and what they do to recognize Person County veterans. They do an outstanding job, one of the best in the state. And I compliment the citizens who put up there green lights in honor of veterans, the week that we'd set aside for that. So anyway, that's my report, and Manager Kathy?
Good morning, everyone. To follow up on Sheriff Jones' report, HR staff did work on conducting a market study for our detention staff, since we were seeing quite a few vacancies in that area, and did identify some adjustments that could be made with lapsed salary funding in the current budget. So it did not require amending their budget. We were able to go ahead and move forward with implementing those changes, so we are glad that we could work with them on that. It likely gets a bit of a head start on the total classification and pay study that we're doing countywide. Those would likely be changes that would have been recommended through that. And as far as the study goes, we will have employee meetings being held next Monday. So we are in the midst of the study, working with our consultants to move that forward over the next few months. So we'll have our results in advance of the budget process.
May I ask you a question, Manager Kathy? You mentioned lapsed salary. We know what that is, and
Sure.
we know the flexibility they have, but would you address that a little bit, please?
Sure. So those are salary savings. It's money that we had budgeted in this current fiscal year, but due to the turnover that they've had within the department, it was money that has not been spent over the first quarter of the fiscal year, first 3 or 4 months. So that money that was still within the budget over that time frame was enough to cover the adjustments for the remainder of the fiscal year, even if they were fully staffed through the end of the year.
And that's budgeted money, which requires no action on this board.
Right, it's within
Yes.
the Sheriff's Department
Right,
budget.
yeah.
We didn't need to pull from another source.
Right. Okay. Commissioner Sims?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to mention that the Uptown Roxborough Group yesterday had a food truck rodeo, and I attended that. It was very successful. Had a lot of people come visiting our county for these food truck rodeos. It brings a lot of people in, and so that was very pleasant to see that. And I'd also just like to say and wish everyone a very safe and happy Thanksgiving. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Palmer?
Chairman Powell and community, I was fortunate enough to be able to purchase, I ordered 3 quarts of stew, and I went back like 2 days later and asked for 3 more, and they were gracious enough to oblige me. If you missed that stew, you missed one of the best in the county that I've ever had. As far as the Veterans Day moved to here, I didn't get that email. No, I would have been here because I am a veteran. And I thank the county employees. I watch you guys. You hear me say this all the time. I watch you guys. I know how hard you work. And I personally appreciate y'all. That's my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Gentry?
I would just like to compliment our new county manager. I am very impressed with the clarity of your communications, your weekly updates, the speed at which you've moved to get things improved has been remarkable, and I just want to compliment you on that and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bergier?
I just want to echo what Chairman Powell has mentioned before. Congratulations, Commissioner-elect Thomas. Congratulations, Sheriff-elect Wilburn. Also would like to thank the people of Person County for allowing me to serve yet one more and final term. But thank you again.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Going along with the adopted agenda, we'll have a 5-minute recess at this time and then move along with item number 5. So take a short break.